this meeting is two-part, but we have two teams, and so it addresses the needs of two teams of editors, which is the wastewater and the stormwater. So I'll start off the slideshow, but we'll switch over to the demonstration at some point of time on Ken's PC. Oh, okay, I see you see the handouts and this. Let me see if I can split it so that you can see the other screen. Okay. Okay, can everybody still see the screen? I'm assuming, right? I would also like to make sure that all the people who are supposed to be in the training are here. Hoping we're not missing anybody, especially from the storm and the wastewater team. I see most of them here. Okay, so I'm assuming that I can get started. Okay, so welcome to the training. And it's great to have everybody over here. We are going to be doing the training for the uh, quality control and editing for the storm drain and the wastewater GIS data. And the goal is at the end of the sessions that the editors should be able to edit the new GIS data in ArcGIS desktop and perform quality control checks. Okay. Okay. So the overview is that we are going to be editing in ArcGIS desktop, and this training will get you started with maintaining your data in ArcGIS desktop instead of CADME. Most of you are familiar with CADME already. It's a great system, but now it's time to move off that system into ArcGIS desktop. And the topics for our training is that we'll go over the training format. We have a section of knowing your GIS, and we'll look at your editing environment, editing workflows, and quality control. And this training and exercise, this is going to give you like practical hands-on training. We will go to the extent that we need to go to get you started. We're not going to go way deep into advanced concepts in this training, but we will see your comfort level, and then based on that, if needed, we can have another session with some advanced concepts. Okay. So the training format is that this PowerPoint will be used as an anchor to explore the related materials. So we'll leave the PowerPoint, we'll go to the demos and come back. We have training workbooks that we have designed. If anybody hasn't received the workbook yet for storm drain and wastewater, let me know. We will send them to you, but you should all have it. And we will also have pop quiz, well, just for fun. There may be prizes, but just because we're doing it online, your prize may look different. Um, and then the editor should complete the training exercises even if it is after the training. So we really need you to complete the exercises. We will follow up with you and make sure that you have been able to complete them. And we will be able to answer any queries that the editors may have while going through these exercises. We will also review your edits that you have made and make sure that your editing was done correctly. And then the previous material that we have provided the editor and the QC manuals, they're going to be used as a reference. Okay. So the first topic we are going to look at right now is knowing your GIS. That means you have this new GIS system which gives you all of your data that you can see them like never before. In the past, you had to, Academy was very difficult to go and explore and find the data and all those things. Relatively, this is going to be way much simpler for you to know your data. Okay, so this section we will go through whatever uh, data sets are there in your data, and then your environment, and also make sure that you answer the questions in your workbook. Okay, so your workbook has an exercise that goes along with it. Okay, at this point, who did not receive the workbooks, can you maybe drop in a text message, and maybe Ted can forward them to you? Does everybody have the workbooks?
Sounds like some people do. At least
Okay.
2, 3 people. Yeah. Oh, Kaylee doesn't have it.
Okay.
Can somebody maybe forward Kaylee?
Kelly
Oh,
found
good.
it. Good.
Good. I think we can continue.
Okay. So if you don't have it, then you know where to put in the message, or you can ask Ted, and you will get it. So that's basically a little bit of how the format is. And now coming to the editing environment. Okay, your data, it lives in something called geodatabases right now. In the past, your format was different, and maybe you had used geodatabase once before, or for some reason or the other. But right now, primarily, it's going to be geodatabase, and it's going to be multi-versioned, and the data sets are registered as versioned, and then this is SQL Server based. And your geodatabases, you have several of them. One is for citywide editing, then you have data reviewer, publishing, workflow manager, and so on. And then you also have for utilities and fiber. I would like to say at this point in this training that you may find some things are a little bit or way different than what Academy was. And if you have questions, you can always type in the chat window, and we'll try to get to them as soon as possible. Okay. Um, so that's your environment there, and so it's at the administrator level. That's what they will kind of make sure it's maintained well at SQL Server and all those things. So you don't have to worry about all of these things. Okay, you just need to know what's your editing database, and that's it. Okay. Um, and so what will you use to maintain your GIS data? You will be using ArcGIS Desktop. There are MXDs provided, and then the SPLID tool, and the Attribute Assistant, and ArcGIS Data Reviewer, RBJ files. I have a question at this point. How many of you are familiar with ArcMap? And let's say, if I was wondering if you had gone through any of the training material that we had sent prior to this on from Esri. There was some Esri training material we had sent to you.
Welcome back, Candace. Haritha just asked if anyone had a chance to go through any of the exercises in the Esri training materials that were sent over. Very little.
Okay, no problem.
No problem.
So we will basically.
We do recommend those trainings, though.
Yeah, whenever you can. Okay.
6 p.m. Okay, no problem.
Okay. And if you'd like to take a look at those before you go into these, then and that's fine too. We need you to complete them. Yeah, we need you to complete these exercises in the training workbook eventually. Maybe even like take a month or so and finish them somehow. Okay. So let's go to the next slide. So we want to show you what your learning resources are. The learning resources that you have available are the documents. You have the editor manuals in which we have given the specific workflows for wastewater and storm drain editing. We have a quick guide for you, which basically gives you the overall workflows and then the um, keyboard shortcuts. And then we have the training workbooks. And then Esri has help files. You just need to press F1 or go to the help on any topic inside. Like if you're inside ArcMap and you don't know what a tool does, and you want to learn more about it, just go to the help file. So basically, that's the documentation part. That's for your learning. And then as far as trainings are concerned, you have this training, and then there is Esri training. We sent you the material before, but you also have a lot of other um, training that's available through Esri on specific subjects in depth. So that's one more thing. And then you, of course, have people who are supporting your learning. You have your colleagues, and then until this project completion, then DCSE will be able to answer your questions or follow up with you to make sure that you are thorough with your editing. Okay. And then there is something called the industry support, which is basically you have user groups. There is Esri industry focus. There is a user group, and basically they share templates and they share tips and tricks and those kind of things. And there are some online forums available for people to explore and learn more. So these are the learning resources. And then so now let's look into this section of exploring your GIS in our catalog format. Okay. um, this is where I am kind of so all of these are in the training workbook. So if you have your training workbook, make sure you open it, and then we can all kind of like follow along. At this point, then I would like to switch to Ken's desktop so that we can take a look at these. Ken, I'm changing you to be the presenter.
Okay, I've had it.
Okay, so the first thing that we are going to look at is that basically GIS data can be of many formats, right? And as you can see, this is our geodatabase, but you're all familiar with like shape files and coverages and CAD format of data. Okay, so we are not going to discuss about the other formats. We're going to be focusing on the geodatabase format today primarily. Okay, um, and I just clicked on the expand button. We were in the art catalog, and I think it's just refreshing for a moment. Okay. Arc catalog is equivalent to like your file explorer for Windows. So if you are familiar with file explorer, it shows what files are there, what type of file, and so on. So it's a little bit more than that for sure. I mean, definitely, but this is just to give you an analogy or equivalent thing. So this thing that you see here is called your geodatabase or your enterprise geodatabase. There is another format of geodatabase which is also called a file geodatabase, and then there was an older format called personal geodatabase. Nobody is using personal geodatabases as much these days. If you want a geodatabase that's like a file and that can be like made into a zip file and sent off to somebody else, you use the file geodatabase. But mainly organizations at an organization level, and at enterprise level, you use something called enterprise geodatabase. And what you see here is merely a connection to your geodatabase, because is all of your GIS data on Ken's PC? Where does it reside? You can speak up. Where is the data located?
It's on a server.
Yeah, it's on server, and it's SQL Server. So if we go to the properties of this, actually we'll go to the geodatabase connection properties. Then this shows that there is the versions and everything over here. And the connection properties shows your SQL Server, and then your instance of the SQL Server, and then you're connected to through something called operating system authentication. That means you don't need a username and password to uh, sign into your geodatabase. As soon as you're logged in into your PC and you open up our catalog, you don't need to exclusively sign in again. It takes in your operating system authentication and then says, oh, this is, let's say Elijah, or this is Eswin. So let's just recognizes and then automatically allows, gives you privileges based on your, however it's been set up, okay, on the geodatabase. So the database that you're looking at is GIS Edit Dev, and that's your editing environment. Now this will change because this is a development environment right now, but later on when you actually start editing your GIS data, then you will have maybe a different one, and you will get that information at that time. Okay, as of now, this is all you need to be concerned about during the training stage. Okay, so that's basically about your database connection. Now let's take a look at your data sets. In your data sets, then you will see, depending on whether or not you have the um, privileges to look at this data, depending on your login, and because Ken has higher or he has privileges to look at all of these data sets, so he has all of these, but you may or may not find all of these data sets in when you log in. Okay, so for example, you may only find stormwater or stormwater related data sets over here, or you may only find the wastewater data sets. Okay, so it just depends on your login, and so based on that you will see the data. Okay, so these are your data sets, and now at this point, if everybody has their workbooks, I think I'll just follow along one of those lessons. Maybe
The
I'll,
wastewater
yeah,
or the stormwater
yeah.
workbook?
The wastewater is fine. I mean, what does everybody prefer? We go through one, and then everybody needs to answer those questions in there, right? So, um, let's see. Let's look at wastewater right now.
I agree.
Okay. Okay. Adam, I think I'm opening up the workbook too, but I won't show the workbook on here. On the demonstration on your screen in the GoToMeeting, we will all be looking at the ARC catalog or ARC map on Ken's PC. Okay, and we will go through the questions in the workbook at the same time. Okay. So the first exercise has a lot of in-depth information. So before we go into the first exercise there, let's take a look at some of the basic things and how to identify some things. Okay, so we've looked at the feature data sets, right? As far as something called coordinate system, and you're already familiar with it from coming from even CADME has coordinate system. Everything does in GIS data have it. So if you go to the properties here, you will see when it shows up the XY coordinate system that you have. You're using NAD 83, state plane, California, zone 6. Okay, so that's basically your coordinate system for the XY. And in case of, well, you do, in all of your data sets should be also having your vertical, which is NGVD 9_1929. So basically, these are your X and Y coordinate system and the Z coordinate system. Okay, so that's what we have for the coordinate systems. Okay, and then the feature classes. So if you look at this, these are your feature classes basically, and you're probably familiar with these because you may have been involved in the geodatabase design and the migration. So you probably already know what these feature, each of these mean, like drywall fitting, what went in from CADME system, the coverage system into each of these. Okay. The nice thing is that when you click on a specific feature class, you can see the name and you can see the type here. Okay, so can somebody tell me what kind of a geometry is lateral? Is it point, line, or polygon? Line. Good. I see no else answer. And then there is the drywall. It's a point. Thank you as well. And then we have the repairs, and then we have the storage area. Okay, so storage area, what is it? It's a polygon, right? And then there is something special over here which looks like an A. Can somebody tell me what this is? It's an annotation or your text, right? What would be this? The drainage topology. This is to keep your data clean, and basically it has rules saying it's a special kind of a it's not necessarily anything like a feature class, but it's the topology class, which is basically saying how the participating feature classes are supposed to interact. Say for example, this belongs to ST drainage area, and the rules set up in this are basically saying that if you have two drainage areas, they cannot be like intersecting or overlapping. So there you have the feature class that participates in there, and there you have the rules that are, for each of these drainage areas, based on the subtype of that. Okay, so
I just want to add that Haritha is right clicking on the feature classes to get to the properties.
yes, thank you, Adam. So that's the topology. And in a similar way, here is something really, well, here is something special too. This is the network. And this happens in both the storm dataset and the sewer and the water datasets, is that you have something called the network. And in network, if you give a right click and then you go to the properties, then you will see all the feature classes that are participating in the network, because not everything in your dataset here is participating in the network. There are some that participate and some that don't. So here is a list of all the feature classes that are participating in the network. Okay. Now we have given a little bit more description of what geometric network is and what this complex edges, simple junction, and snapping tolerance, connectivity, and so on. All of this information is available in the user manual, so I will not go into that detail today. Okay, we are more into practical hands-on editing. So I'm going to cancel this out, and that was the geometric network. So there is one more thing over here. You may not have seen this before, but there is something called offset dimension that exists for both the wastewater datasets and the stormwater. It's called SD over here, but there it's called WW in the beginning of the name. And what this is for is basically for showing dimensioning, and it stores the arrows and the measurements and all and the text that goes along with it. Like if you wanted to show the distance between the center line and the storm drain. Okay, so that's basically the um, different kinds of feature classes that you have here. The other couple of things that we have are something called relationship classes. When you see something like this, these are relationship classes, and they say this feature class is related to, so let me show you the properties. Okay, if you go to the properties, right click and go there, then it will tell you what's the origin feature class and what's the destination and how the relationship acts. Okay, we will show something to you a little bit later as far as like how this works, but this is between the sampling point and the outlet. So those are the relationship classes that you have. I think that covers for most parts. Does anybody have any questions so far? Okay, good. So I'm proceeding to the next part, which is basically your fields, feature classes. We have seen what each of these are, like the feature classes, but I'd like to show you a little bit more. If you're interested in finding out more about a feature class, well, there's a few things you can do in our catalog itself. Like you can go to the description, and it's basically going to pull up the information which has been nicely populated during your migration project, which is giving you the summary, what the specific feature class contains, and then you have credits and usage limitations, and then the extents of the data and the scale range that it is.
This is what's called the metadata, right, Haritha?
Yes, this is called the metadata, and that's all available in your description. Okay. We don't anticipate the editors to be changing any of this information. I'm assuming at this point that it will be the ITGIS who will be editing these. Okay. When you click on preview, you should be able to see some information over here, which it's going to refresh in a second. Okay. One thing you see is something called a geography. And then you will see a table. Okay, this is a blank feature class. So let's go and take a look at something that may have some data, maybe the manhole. So you see that, and you're all familiar with this. If you have worked with ArcMap before, that 2000 star means that there's more records, right? Hit that and it will go to the last record. Hit that and to the first record. And these are the basics of your table navigation, right? So this basically gives you an overview of how many. You cannot do too much over here in this interface, but you can do some things like just, because this is our catalog. Okay, so you can just go and, identify. And then how many ever it found within that area, it's going to basically give you the information on. Okay, so that's looking at the feature classes themselves and the metadata and things. So the next thing that you want to be familiar with, if you give a right click on any of these and then you go to the properties. Okay, Candace is not able to open our catalog on her desktop.
Candace, do you get any messages when you try and open?
The
File
file
path
path
is
is.
invalid. What does that mean, Haritha?
Not sure. I think at this point you need the VPN and stuff. Depends on. I think.
Can we see her screen? Maybe make a presenter.
Can we do it a little bit later then? I mean, we would like to. Yeah, that's okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Candice. We'll come back to you. Okay. So what we see here is basically, if you go to the feature class, you will find a lot more information when you go to the feature class properties, right? You will see whether it has attachments and privileges and versioning, and there's a lot of things, archiving. But let's just go to what matters most for editing. I will say right now at this point, I just want to show you the fields. What it is that there are fields in your data, and you are already familiar with it through the GIS, geodatabase design process and everything. So you have fields, and then there is something called data type. What kind of a data goes into that field, right? It's text, numeric, long integer, whatever it might be. Um, and then the type of like date type data there. And then you have, if say for example, you were to go and let's say click on this owner field, you will see something called domain, which is basically your pick lists or your drop down list. Okay. And then there are some fields which you cannot edit, like object ID, and maybe the global IDs like this over here, and the shape you cannot edit, like as in like you cannot, the shape length and those kind of fields are automatically calculated. Okay, so there are fields that you can edit, there are fields that you cannot edit. And then the most important thing I believe is the editor tracking here, which will tell you these are the fields that they show up here too, but I'm showing you here because that's basically telling you what's your creator field is, create date. So when you create new features, these fields are automatically populated for you. Okay, so um, that's your editor tracking fields. Okay, we've talked about geometric networks, so I will not go back to those, and but one thing we'll talk more about it during editing. We've looked at topology. I'm just going through a checklist over here. Okay, time to open up ArcMap. So okay, let me well, we can leave this on or maybe close this. Okay, so Ken, would you be able to open up the ArcMap, the MXD that Ted was mentioning earlier about? So for your editing, we're not just, technically you can open up ArcMap and you can bring in data and you can start symbolizing and working, but the work that we have done so far involves setting up symbology and templates and stuff so that it makes it streamlined for you for editing.
Did Ted show the path to the
Yes,
MXD itself?
it's in the chat window. I thought that's okay. He said something about RC-ArcGIS. Do you see the message in the chat window?
Well, not right now. I don't, because this is maximized.
Oh, okay. Let me navigate you then, or let me tell you where it is. There is /RC-ArcGIS
Okay.
/GIS data
Okay.
/departments /public_works /GIS editing QC templates.
Yeah, that's too logical.
Mhm. Does anybody need a break? Questions?
Yeah, it may take a little bit to load it up. I'm not sure what the problem is here.
Yeah, take a break for maybe a minute or so. Stretch your legs and whatever you need to. Yeah. It can be hard just sitting at the chair and staring at a screen. So
What do we say?
yeah. So GIS data, he said,
Yeah, public works.
and GIS editing. There, the QC templates. That one. That one. In that, he said, well, maybe it's the edit because we are
Maybe
going to.
it's probably editing. Which one are we doing?
Let's open up
Storm.
the wastewater.
There you go. Obviously, I'm going to have to do a little tuning on this particular device.
Mm-hmm.
Ted says open up the MXD, save it locally on your machine off the server, maybe to your C drive.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So yeah, that's reading a map document off the server, is going to be much slower than reading it off your local machine. So I imagine every time you guys have a new project to come in and edit, you'll go to this area somewhere on the server to grab a template editor, wastewater editor, or stormwater editor, and save it to your C drive or your local machine somewhere in your local to work off of. Is that correct?
Oh,
Mm-hmm. Okay. So did you open the local one or is it the one from server here?
I think this is the one from the server.
Okay. Maybe you can, if it's from the server, let's close it and open the one on your desktop.
All right.
So who remembers what the version of your enterprise geodatabase is? For the for the um, stormwater and the wastewater datasets. What's your geodatabase version? Is it 10.6.1 or is it 10.7.1?
I was thinking it was a 10.7.1, but Ted would
Yes.
know for sure.
Yes, you're right. It is 10.7.1, but it doesn't mean that you cannot edit it in a lower version of ArcGIS. You can go and open up a 10.6.1 ArcMap and still be able to. There is compatibility in that way. So this is taking a while, and when MXDs take a little bit longer to open up, one of the most common reasons is who can guess? It would be the broken links. So if
That's
you get
that's too much data that's not properly mapped to the data source location. So Noel, you're pretty much correct.
yeah, it's one of the most common reasons. Like you get an MXD from somewhere, and then you try to open it up. It takes long time, and then when it opens up, you will see some red exclamation marks, which means that it lost its connection, which is one of the things we were about to show you anyway in our demo today. So might as well get to it when we see this MXD opens up.
Yeah, that's convenient.
Okay. So what do you see here? We see an MXD, right? And you see those red exclamation marks. Let's see what they are, why they're missing the data. When you drag this out, this is called your table of contents. Okay, some of these, so, and we are all aware of, if you have looked at our sprint prior deliverables, then we said that, oh, we recommend adding these annotation classes, but then I think you did not want it. In this case, we are not going to be fixing these links because this data doesn't exist. So I'm going to simply remove it. Okay. So we recommended some feature classes like feature linked annotations, but we realized that you wanted to just use labeling instead of feature linked annotations. So these got removed then. So we're not fixing these links. We're like removing these because these feature classes do not exist. Okay. So that was one way, one fix, one possible solution for those red exclamation marks. So I'm going to save this, and next time onwards, it shouldn't take, long.
Quite as long.
Mhm. Oh, there is one more here. I believe the tracts. Maybe we do not possibly have a tracts layer, do we?
We check. And wards, that's weird.
Yeah, wards are needed. And do you have a wards layer somewhere, Ken?
Let's check our
sure
catalog.
Yeah, open up the catalog and go to that data connection.
Okay, so we can open up from here too, right? So we can say that's your sort of a mini catalog that sits in your ArcMap. And then double click your database connection. And maybe cat temp might have some things. Let me, sorry, I meant to zoom back to previous extents, but I meant to drag this one out. Okay, there is no tracts. Where would be wards if you?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay, Okay, we'll come back to the wards.
Might be under Lucity, but
Sorry?
I just said it might be under the Lucity.
Okay.
Nope, sorry. But I know we don't have the land base, so
Yeah,
that's why the tracks aren't appearing.
okay. I know we were given like a separate layer called wards, which we put on our side, but we can come back to it later. When we do the SPL ID, by then we need it. So if Ted can provide somehow, add it in there, then we can map to it. For now, there is no hindrance. I mean, there's just 2 layers. We'll keep them like that and map them when we get the data. Okay. So what we're looking at right now is basically your ArcMap, and it's been designed so that you can you can start editing the data. Okay, this area is this here is called your data frame, and under which we have layers that are grouped. There are several groups. One here you see group for wastewater, and if you were in the storm drain, you'll find something similar, which is basically grouping of layers for storm drain there. And then you have the reference layers, which you will not be editing but only using for reference. And then you have all the ones that you're editing up here. Then there is annotations, and then there is the network features, and then there is a group for abandoned facilities. Okay, interesting thing is that you find abandoned feature classes here, but do we have abandoned feature classes here? No, you don't. But what we have done is taken the same data and shown it in a different way. There is something in your MXD. If you give a right click and then you go to the properties, then there is something called definition query, in which you're saying only show the ones that are abandoned over here. Okay, so that's your definition query that is making sure that you only see the abandoned features over here. Okay, that means that there is a definition query. Can anybody guess what this one will say here? Which is not inoperable and abandoned. It's like the inverse of that. So making up these two, you get your complete picture. Okay, so be very careful when you look at an MXD. You have to look at the definition query to make sure that is your data set complete, or you're showing only the portions that are relevant for our editing. So this makes it easier for us or for the editors to edit the data so that they can focus on the active features only when they're editing, and then they have these as the reference to look at the abandoned features. Okay.
Maybe show them the symbology.
Yes,
for
definitely. Yeah. So symbology, let's take a look at that. When you press any of these buttons here, you will see that there is a symbol that comes up. Okay. My question is, why are these grayed out? Can anybody guess?
They're scale dependent.
Yes, they're scale dependent. That means they're not visible at the scale that you are right now, which is at basically the citywide area. But if you keep zooming in close, then you will see that they're slowly turning, from the gray color to black there. And then you will start seeing the features also on the map. Okay, so how do you know at what scale they show up? If you go to the properties again, and then you go to the general, and then there is that scale which is saying, oh, don't show these manholes when you're out beyond 3000 scale. Okay, and then the other things that you can look at are basically your source. You have to make sure that you're in the same editing database that you have to be. and then what kind of, you can change these colors, because when you select, every time you see the sand color, but if you wanted a different color, you can change these over here, or a different symbol, and then you can make them transparent and so on. There's a lot of things. These are the basics of ArcMap, but mainly your symbology here is based on the subtype. You can look for basically the counts. Right now, all of your manholes are designated as standard, but eventually when you find that they're either drop manholes or the split manholes, you can change the subtype, and basically you will see these counts vary at that point of time. We have intentionally put this one over here as a symbol. That means that if somebody created something without any subtype, or it's a subtype that the number doesn't match any of these, then we'll have a question mark show up so that you can go and change it to the right one. Okay. Then you have the fields, different kinds of fields. Now you can change the symbology. You can turn off these fields and show only some of those. So these are all the possibilities. We already looked at the definition query. And then there's labels. You can turn them on if you wanted to. Okay, so the manhole numbers show up. And turn them off. And there is any joins and relates which you might want to temporarily do in your data processing. So there's the time series, but these are all part of ArcMap training too. So we're not going to go too much into detail on these. Okay, so I'm going to cancel this out, but we have looked at some of these functionalities that are related to layers on your MXD. The other thing I would like to show you is list by source here on the tab, the table of contents. And if the sources are missing, which is happening for a couple of layers, it may take a minute. Okay, so this is showing you that we are all at SDE default, right? So and then the database name, your enterprise database name. Okay. I have a question. You see the dataset name being shown as GIS edit dev.arc.wastewater. Does anybody know what it means? What does the GIS edit dev portion mean? So if you go to any of these properties here, that's basically your database name dot, and then you have the owner of the data's name dot, and then the name that you've assigned to the feature class. So that's the convention. If you go to the source here, then you will see that your database name is that GIS edit dev. Okay. And
also, the extent shown there, the top, bottom, left, and right extent coordinates.
Yeah, they are your extent coordinates. Okay. Then let me go to this one. So that's basically showing you where your data is coming from, and there is quite a few that's missing the data set, so no wonder, right? So that's the thing. We'll also have to check why we're not able to get to these two base maps, but these two are possibly coming from ArcGIS Online, which I think they are ArcGIS Online layers, but we'll have to check why they're not coming through. Okay. They're useful because you have a base map like aerial imagery that you can throw in there. But if you have your own base map, which the link to which Ted might be able to provide, then you can overlay that as well. Let's look at things, layers by visibility, like which layers are visible, which ones you can see at a glance, because you might be wondering, oh, is this layer, am I just not seeing data? Then you can look at it over here and say which layers are not visible at that specific range, and then which ones are out of scale. So that's for your visibility part. But I want to show you the selections, because there are some features which we have intentionally set as not selectable, because every time you click on your map for editing, we don't want you to select a wastewater map grid. And, so we just are setting it to the layers that you're editing basically over here. Okay, so right now, nothing is selected, right? So let's zoom out a little bit. And I'm just going to drag my mouse. Okay, let me just stop here. You may see, and the index polygon is selectable there, but you may see that if you see all the selected ones over there, which is the lateral lines, 3 of them got selected, the cleanouts, the main, the wastewater service area. Now you can move these to, when you click here, it clears the layer selection. And you can turn them off from being selected so that you don't edit layers that you don't want to. You can, the way you do that would be, say, for example, the index polygon or even the service area, because you don't want to be editing the service area on a daily basis. Go here and then click this, and it moves to that list of not selectable. Okay, so that's how you manage your layer selectability. Okay, and then this is the options for the table of content, and how to show the patches. So that's your layers, your table of contents. Just the table of contents has got quite a bit there, right? So the toolbars, you have the toolbars and feature templates and map navigation. Okay, so you can give a right click here, and then you will see the toolbars. Okay, so the standard toolbar, and then you have the tools. Did everybody get the quick guide that we sent yesterday?
Yes.
Yeah, it was sent with the exercise booklets.
Right. So in that quick guide, you have a list of the toolbars that you need to have open. Okay, so let's go through the list of toolbars that we need. Let me open up myself on one side, or Adam, can you?
Yes, 1 second. Okay, toolbars check. You need the standards toolbar, the tools toolbar, which you have.
Which is already there, yeah.
So let's add the versioning toolbar.
So we can go and turn on the versioning toolbar.
You can dock those on the, yep.
Yeah, that's how you dock
like
them.
That.
Drag and place them there. Okay, the other option, instead of going like, I think one by one, I mean, you can also go to the customize menu here. I clicked, it's taking a minute. Okay, then you have toolbars over here, and you can also get it to this through this. Okay, so we added the versioning.
So the editor toolbar.
The editor toolbar, and this is kind of in an alphabetical order, so I have a little bit. So I'm pressing the E, the letter E, and then I get to it. Okay. So that's your editor toolbar. Okay. Okay.
All right. We need the utility network analysis bar, toolbar. That's it. All right.
I pressed U to get to that quickly. Okay, I'll rearrange
Geometric.
them. Okay.
Yeah.
And then
The yeah.
geometric network editing.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have more than one toolbar with that letter, then you obviously get to that, and then you scroll down. So your geometric network editing toolbar, and
We would need the attribute assistant toolbar.
okay, that's something I am not sure if it's been set up here.
No, it hasn't been set up yet.
Okay, so we'll come back to that later. Okay, so these are the toolbars, and then you of course have to save your MXT, right, to make sure that you hold all those toolbars there and have them ready. So that's basically the toolbars that we have. And in the editor manual, then you have all of those. Let me ask you a quick question. Which of the toolbars you would use for tracing a network?
Is it the network analysis toolbar?
Um, yeah, there are two toolbars there, right? The geometric network editing and the utility network analysis. So which one would it be? So the analysis one, the utility network analysis, is the one that you would use for any kind of tracing purposes. Okay. The geometric network editing is during editing when you have a little bit more complex situations with your geometric network to resolve those. Okay, so that's toolbars, and the next functionality that we have to see is our feature templates. So the feature templates, say for example, you were to start editing. Now before I started editing, let me do one thing. Let me at least switch the version to the proxy default. So I'm going to what I would do, I think I would get rid of those layers that we don't have data yet. So things don't be, so difficult for us to work with. It'll be faster. So I'm going to remove them. Okay. And do you remember where the Bing layer came from?
You remove them. It's just that other view didn't. Oh, there they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will remove that. Okay. And is the topographic layer active? Okay. So let's come back to this one. So we are here. So we go back here to change your version, and I'll show this. Just go here and then you say change version, right? And we don't want to edit the default for a training time. We're going to be using the training default. When you give a right click, so let me show that again. When you look at this table of contents and you're in this list by source, you go click on this connection, right? Give a right click and then say change version. Don't click over here. If you were to click here, then it's trying to think you're renaming something, but click here on this node and give a right click and then say change version. And you will see versions. Now, things could be a little bit confusing when you see in this view because they're all like so many different versions. Go to the tree view and then choose the parent. Like when you're editing on a day-to-day basis in your production environment, you will be going to default. But now for our training, we are going to be choosing this as the parent. So let's at least go to this parent level. So we choose this SDE training default. Okay, so there your version is changed. Okay, there are several ways to change versions, like you can do it some other way, but basically this is one way of doing it. Now, so we have changed the version. The reason why I did that is that I just wanted to maybe show you start editing, but you normally don't edit unless you're in a child version that you're supposed to be editing in. So let's create the child version also. There is the versioning toolbar over here. You can have the version manager, right? You can go to the tree view, you can go to this, give a right click, say new version. There is a naming convention for versions, but today, right now I'm doing a demo, so I'll just say demo version, okay? But you will have to stick to the version naming convention. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay, it's basically your neighborhood, or I'll just give it like this, neighborhood underscore project name underscore the editor name, which here it would be Ken's initials, right? So that's that. And then you have the protected. You can give a little bit more description. What kind of project you're editing? Is this some kind of an as-built new development? What it is, CIP, and then you say okay. Okay, so that's how you created your version. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, so you close the versioning and then switch, give a right click, change version, and you can select the new version that you created. You know for sure what it is, right? Say okay. Okay, you will also notice that Ken's name came in the front of that version name there, even though you have intentionally put your initials there. But it also comes up this way to say who's the owner of the version there that created, because obviously this is the underscore KA that we have put over there at the end is the initials that users might put in, but this is being tracked here by the ArcGIS software in the beginning, Riverside / okay. So that's basically our creating the version. And when you say editor and then start editing, okay, so there are some tables it's not allowing us to edit, and that's okay. Okay, we don't have privileges to edit, and that's perfectly fine, to not be able to edit them, because we won't be editing them, we won't need to. Okay, so you can say continue, and here you will see that when I try to click this create features, basically these are your create features templates. What are these? Create features templates are basically the templates that are used to create the facilities that belong to the wastewater here, or in the stormwater, you'll find that it's for the a convenient place to just pick what you want, and then it will bring it in here with the attributes that are necessary. Okay, so you know what exactly you want to insert. Let's say, for example, you want to put in a drop manhole. Okay, I'm just saying random test, right? So you can say come and click on that, click here on the screen wherever you need to. Okay, in your user manual, we have given specific instructions on how you would want to place them. Like, for example, if you were to create them at let's say along this line, but over here by 10 feet or 100 feet, whatever it might be, right? So we have given you instructions and examples over there, but right now I just wanted to show you what feature templates are. Okay, so that's basically your feature templates. Okay, these can be edited, but we just think that it's better to have like a standardized symbol set for all the editors. Okay, any questions on this? Okay, yeah. Ken, I think you can also search for the templates. For example, you are looking at it and you don't know where to find in this, because the list could grow longer, right? So you could say, oh, you're searching for, let's say, lateral, and then you can search for the lateral. You'll find that right away. The other things are that you can say, okay, I don't need to, you can say clear the search, but you can organize templates. You can filter by, oh, you want to digitize only points first. Okay, so let's just do the points. Or you can say filter by lines or polygons, or maybe you need to create annotations, but right now there isn't. Let me actually filter by polygons, and you get them there. So these are the different ones, and if you find that a feature template is missing, you can easily create it. Okay, so you can organize the templates, and for example, for that annotation, right, so you have that already. So there's some templates that are not listed over here. So that's that one there. So the layer associated with this feature template has a scale range that is beyond the current map scale. So you may have to go and tweak the map scales to be able to show them. So these are filter by, group by, and then you can say frequency, group by the frequency. And actually we have clicked on, we go here, and you can go to the properties of the template, and then you can change things like the symbol ID or so on. And then the word is an attribute. I think it's not needed for this, but you can say, okay, you want it to be like follow feature horizontal. Now this is one example of templates, and you can also make new templates from any of the layers that you have here. Okay, Say, for example, for wastewater septic, when you check that on, then it will show up over here. You can rename it, you can go to properties. In the properties, you can set some attributes there if you wanted to. Like you can say, maybe give the property type, all of the property type to be residential, for example. Anytime you create one septic tank feature, then you'll get them to be with residential. So this is how you set your feature templates, attributes, and then you manage them. So when you create a feature, it will come up with those attributes if you picked it from these feature templates. Okay? So that's basically the feature templates. Any questions? Okay. Map navigation. I don't think it is, much different as than what you have seen from all the way before, but you have this find to basically go anywhere in your system. Okay, so I hope it shows up. It's just taking a few minutes, but you can go find features with this and navigate to them. And in your manual, you have different, we've described the methods how to go to these different features. And then you have all of these navigation tools, right? Zoom in, zoom out, fix zoom in, fix zoom out, and then pan, and then go to your extents of your data and so on. You also have bookmarks. I'm just waiting for the spinning to stop so that I can show you the bookmarks. And this can happen.
Yeah, it is ArcMap after all.
So when this happens,
There we go.
okay, thank goodness. I'm like the first crash already before we start.
Sometimes the escape helps.
Okay, good.
Stops the process temporarily.
So that's a good point. If you're ever stuck with that, the escape, and then you have these over here. Sometimes if your data is taking too long to draw, you have the pause and the refresh. Are you seeing at the bottom of the screen here where I'm holding the mouse? Okay, this basically is basic. You can go and find features and then locations. There is a detailed exercise in there in your user manual to basically find. So I'm not going to go over that right now. I'm going to close that. Okay, so I meant to say these are your refresh, and most times ArcMap is really good with the refresh and then pause, but this refresh is for your map display only. It's not for data refresh from other versions and all. That's a different thing, and we'll talk about that later. But these two buttons are useful sometimes when you have a lot of data and you're waiting for it to draw, and you can basically pause it, zoom to whichever feature by going to the tables and all. So that's the map navigation menus over here, and you have the selection over here, how you can select the different features. And these are all the basics of ArcMap. So you can select using rectangle, polygon, and so on. I'm not going to go into the basics here, but just to let you know that these functionalities do exist, and maybe some tips if I find. So when you're working with the selection, there is also something up here that you can say interactive selection method. And you're usually on create new selection, but if you want to be having to select from your current selection, then you can use this option instead. Okay, or you can remove from the current selection. So there are keyboard shortcuts for those, and we'll be giving you those keyboard shortcuts. Okay, so selection identify, you can click and identify. You can drag your mouse like this and then it will identify. But here it says only topmost layer, so you only get one. If you say all layers, then it will basically show all layers, whether visible or not. Okay, and then anything that just goes, you can click on one point, you can drag and click. You can drag and get several of them. Or you can go into your group and say you only want within that group of features. Okay, so this is useful there. And you can sort these by value or by field. And there's this expand pane that will show you. And then you can also toggle the split orientation, make it to the right, and then go through the list like this. Okay, so these are some uh, things, the basics. Bookmarks is something I want to show you. So you have a bookmark for City of Riverside, you press that and then it'll zoom out. It goes pretty quickly because we have turned off most layers at that scale. If we did not, then it will take a long time to draw. Okay. That being said, we have the attribute table. So any of these feature classes you want to open up the attribute table, you can, but it sits there, double click, and then it goes to a corner. You can bring it to the bottom here, toggle them, dock them wherever you want. But you have these going to the last record, sorting. These are all the basics. So I'm not going to go too much into detail on this one. But any questions so far? Okay. I take that as no questions, or you're all very tired. We should take a break, right? Yes?
Sure.
Okay. Let's take a let's come back by 10:30. Okay? I'm
Okay.
going to pause the recording and then yeah, we'll come back by 10:30. Hello, I'm back.
Hello.
Is everybody back?
Well, that was prompt.
Cool.
You didn't have to walk far for the restroom, so. Okay. So I just want to get a feedback, a little bit of take on how everybody is doing, and do you have any questions? And also, it may sound too monotonous if I keep on talking and we're not doing anything. So I have a really important concept to cover, and after that, we can either go into the hands-on exercises, um, or basically, um, we can go on hands-on exercises. I think that would be best after this important concept that we're going to cover. Okay. So I will switch myself to be the presenter, and we will take a look at the workflow that you're going to follow, like the overall workflow of versioning. Okay. This is going to be pretty intense. So once that's done, we can do the hands-on. 1 second. I'll be right back. Okay. Is that okay? Okay, I'm assuming it's a yes, so I'm going to make myself the presenter again and share slideshow from current slide. Okay, so we have looked at all of these so far, right? Exploring ArcGIS and ArcMap. So this is topic 2, where we'll be starting with the editing. And there is an important concept I would like everybody to grasp, look at it in detail. Ask me if you have any questions, because, and again, you don't have to, we don't have to be bogged down too much into it, but I would like you to understand the whole process. Okay, so everybody ready to see this? Yes? Okay, here we go. How does it look like?
Looks good.
Well, so are we ready to look at this? Ken, what do you think? Should we go over this diagram a little bit?
Sure.
Okay. So what this is basically the workflow that, because we are all working together, right? So in the sense that there are some tasks editors will perform, but there are also responsibilities for the ITGIS, which is Ted, and then Ken would be doing the administration parts of it. So there, especially in the beginning, we don't want a lot of things to be, I mean, some portions can be done by the admins to ease this whole process, right? So this process, if you look at it, it's actually a little bit basic stuff, really. And the way communications go on over here, as far as saying whether the project, the GIS, aspect that you have taken is being edited by somebody else or not. And this kind of addresses, I think, Ken, it was your question or comment on the on one of your feedback forms, which said, how do the editors know, and are there any conflicts that might happen and things like that, and how do we resolve it? Okay, so
Yes.
what this starts off with, let's just follow the box number 1, and everybody can see the cursor, right, where the mouse is. So this box, the blue editors, the blue boxes are all for the editors to work on, okay? And the green boxes are for the ITGIS. If there is a blue text, then it's a one-time task. The remaining tasks, the black color text can come like any number of times depending on the need. But for your workflow of one project, the blue text happens once, okay? And then the red text is where you have any conflicts or errors, or it's like a checkpoint, right? Whether you go this way or that way from there. Okay, so that's how this diagram is organized. And then what you have here is, first, the editors will usually go and get their source data from somewhere. It could be an as-built or a red line. When you look at that, you know what's your neighborhood and your project name. And this is important because we're going to be giving our name, the version names that way. So you go to ARC catalog and you can review the versions under default. And we have seen how to do that, how to check for versions, right? What versions are present or not. And then when you look at that, are there any versions with whose names start with the neighborhood that you will be editing? Say, for example, you have a neighborhood called, can you give me an example of a neighborhood? Anybody? Ken?
Presidential Park
Okay, so if there's a
or
president,
Ramona.
okay, so
Yeah.
there's presidential park, for example, and you have been assigned one to edit there, but then somebody else is also assigned the same neighborhood. Okay, now if you know that that person is a storm editor and you're editing the storm data, then you know that there is going to be a conflict if you both edit the same area. So that's why you will try to coordinate, and this is more like checking with them which areas, like which tiles, maybe how far you are from their editing. Okay, the goal is not to avoid conflicts altogether, but at least in the beginning stages of your editing, editor migration, you had a streamlined process with Cadme where you almost never like bumped into each other, right? This one you are going to, because you have the flexibility, and with that flexibility comes this responsibility of trying to avoid it in the beginning, but later on you will be uh, you know very comfortable resolving conflicts and all, but you're trying to basically streamline your editing, and right now not to have an overlap with the others. Okay, so once you establish that, okay, nobody else is going to edit in the same area, at least in the beginning stages, um, beginning, I mean in the beginning of your, like this next 3 months, 6 months while you're editing the data, and then after that you can resolve conflicts and whatnot, and that should be fine. Okay, so that's what I mean. So you create, then if everything's clear, nobody else is editing the same neighborhood for the same data sets, then you say, okay, you go and create your version, and how it will be created is as a child of default with the name neighborhood underscore project name underscore initials, just as you had seen in the example, and the access will be protected level. Um, then you open your editing MXD, you check your toolbars, just like we were looking at doing the toolbar check a little bit earlier, and then you can check the settings. If you look at your editor manual, there is settings for everything, including snapping and versioning, how you do the reconcile and post and those kind of things. So everything's in there. So you will be doing that, going through the checklist. Also, your editor, the quick guide gives you that information. And then you navigate to the project location. You know how to find the location. You can go by the tile, you can go by finding the address, and then you can identify what changes you need to make to your GIS. Okay, because your GIS is dynamic. It could have changed since people have, since maybe last week or something. So you have to always, take a look at your GIS and see, compare with your source data and see what changes need to be made. These are all the practical steps. You have done this a million times maybe before when you were editing in Cadme. Okay, so then you switch to the new version that you created. You start editing, you keep saving your edits, you reconcile your version, you refresh your version, and you stop editing when you're done. And then you do something called QC, open the QCMXT, and then switch to the edit version there. And then you conduct a quality control. If you find any errors, then you fix those errors, you save the edits, you reconcile, refresh, and then again, this is a loop. Hopefully not an endless one. Maybe you just finish it within one, round of QC, right? So once you don't find any errors, so errors found is no, you send an email to ITGIS saying that this is the project name, which will give you a version name, and then the status, is it complete? And then you can say any known issues, like for example, maybe you found that there is some edit that you were not able to do for whatever reason, and you can list that there so that they know, they're aware of it. Okay. And then the ITGIS QC procedures starts. When they do the QC, if there are any errors found, then they will send you an email, and then you get into this loop of fixing the errors. But if there are no errors found, then at the point of which no errors are found, then your version is declared pass, and then and then the ITGS posts the version to default. And we are saying that because if there are any conflicts, they will be resolved at that point. Okay. And then on the editor side, you'll need to open your edit MXD and save it to the default version, switch to the default version, and the QCMXD to the default version, and then the ITGIS will delete the version. So this is a basic workflow.
Yeah,
Sorry, does someone have a question?
That's a Chris Davidson thing.
Say it again.
What's that?
We can't hear you that well.
Hello?
Maybe that was some background talk. I'm sorry, Haritha. You can keep going.
Okay, well, definitely this might bring up a lot of questions. But this giving you this streamlining right now, the idea is that to make, it's like an overall workflow. You have the tools you can edit, right? And you have the, privileges, everything's been set up, but how and where your information flows, because there's two teams working here, which is basically the editors and then the ITGIS doing something at a little bit higher level. Okay. And also in the beginning, it's easier that the ITGIS posts to the default version and takes care of any conflicts that might happen, at least in the first 3 months, maybe 6 months. And once the editors get comfortable, then they can ease off these portions and then move on. I see chat messages. Let me check. Okay, yeah. Okay, so no questions. So
Haritha,
far,
maybe you can explain. Does everyone understand what like reconciling a version and refreshing the version means? Yes. Okay. Maybe Haritha, you can explain. The center of the flow diagram, like why they want to reconcile, why they want to refresh,
right,
and
right.
maybe if they when they open the QCMXD, like should they close down the editing MXD before they do that, things like that.
Okay, yeah, I would recommend closing the MXT. When you say stop editing, I'm also assuming we can close the MXT there, and then you open up the QC MXT so that you are looking at it just in one MXT at a time. I mean the version. And the reconcile is basically that you have all the information in the user manual on reconcile and refresh. You're refreshing your version because you need to get any edits that have been done by some other people so that you can see those changes. if it happened in your area. We're trying to avoid that at this point, but you just never know. So that's why we say, okay, you have to reconcile your versions and then you have to refresh your versions. Okay. Any questions?
Does that explain reconciling and refreshing for the versions and how the versions kind of work in the editing process?
We have a little bit more detailed discussion on those later.
Okay.
So we will, yeah, look at those. Okay. Now, so the two blue tabs that you see, this is your life cycle of your versions, if I may say. This blue here is your version gets created. Here it gets posted to your default. That means your version is no longer having any differences than the default version. And then the last one here is it gets deleted. Can you see the bottom of the screen? It says IDGIS deletes the version. Okay. So what you're saying essentially is that this is kind of like the life cycle of the version, but also how your the remaining portions here in between are how you're editing the version and managing it. So if there are no questions, then I will move on to the next slides. Okay. Okay. Okay, moving to the next slide. Okay, so avoiding conflict. So we check with other editors. So that's why we have that step in there where you're checking with the other editors. But also we're having this naming convention where you're saying neighborhood, project name, and initials. So you know, if you see the initials and you know that, oh, it's somebody in the storm editing and they're in the same neighborhood and maybe a different project, so that you can coordinate and then make sure. Okay. And then the goal is, like I said, not to avoid conflicts forever, but in the beginning, first few days of learning this whole process, you can avoid the conflicts, but they can always be, if conflicts occur, they can be resolved. And then there is detailed instructions in the user manual. There is also the version comparison tool that you can use, but we'll show that to you a little bit later. Okay. So that's the conflicts on the versions. And then, so here is the things about before starting editing. Okay, so this is basically sort of a checklist on before starting to edit. And what I would like to do at this time, I think is it's best for us to switch to the desktop and go through the exercises. Okay. Let's make sure kind of like see if everybody was able to or can go through the training exercise on knowing your data. Okay, we may not cover this entire PowerPoint today. That was not the goal. It's like we have today's session and tomorrow's session. So we want to make sure you're comfortable with the material so far. So let's look at um, the book, the training workbook. Okay. Okay, so
Exercise B1.
yeah, so I'm going to actually switch over to Ken's PC again, make him the presenter, and request keyboard and mouse. Okay, I'm assuming everybody is able to access the training workbook.
You left the ArcMap open, right? Or did it crash?
I am trying to think. I think it was open when I don't remember closing it.
Can I move this stuff here?
Yeah, the GoToMeeting windows, you can move them out or you can minimize them actually.
I'm not seeing it.
Is this the machine with that? because it's 10.3.1 on this. It's not 10.7.1.
Yeah, I thought you were remoting into another machine that had desktop.
Oh yeah, this is, well, never mind. So yeah, it did minimize this one. That's what I was, great.
Okay.
You're back in black.
Okay. Okay. Can everybody see the screen? I'm assuming everybody can. If you cannot, then let me know in the chat window.
I can see fine.
Okay. So we are looking at just following along the workbook. We have the toolbars described there. We didn't turn on the data reviewer toolbar, but we'll use that in the QCMXT. Okay, so let's see. The exercise 1 is basically knowing your data, right? So you can open up the wastewater editing MXT, open the manhole attribute table, and so steps 2 and 3. Has anybody done steps 2 and 3? And what was your answer? You can type in the chat window. And if you're not sure what we're talking about, let us know immediately. Ken, would you like to go through the steps? Do you have the workbook?
I don't have it open right now.
Okay.
Oh, yes, I do.
Would you be able to, or we
Yeah,
can
just go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So this is you will of course find the manhole feature class, right? And then you open the attribute table, give a right click, and then open the attribute table, right? And then we have a query. It's my practice to just hit that button. I somehow don't, and I'm not comfortable with that 2000 star. I always hit that. So go and you can select by attributes. And your query, this is called a query, right? So when you're saying these are the fields that are listed over here, those are like the basics, right? So you have created by equals, and then this is a nice thing. I can say get unique values and it'll show me all the unique values. Double click that. Okay, who's got the answer before I hit apply? I'm waiting for an answer in the chat window or verbally. No one? Going once? Okay, I get an answer from Noel. Good. Good job, Noel. So the answer is 42. Okay, so this was an example, but I'd like you to, use this is just, created by, something like that. Is basically the editor tracking fields to see, okay, how many, but you can also give a lot of other queries, um, whatever your most common type of searches would be. Let me see. You can go by map sheet equals, and I hope there's information. No, that's not, sorry. Or let me see what would be rim diameter is, let's say, greater than 4. And you have 6, 5, 6, 7. manholes with rim diameter greater than 4. So you can do all these queries, right? So that's your, the first question was that. And the second question actually was going back to the first question. So let's get back to that query again. So the second question is, what is the asset ID of the last active manhole that A Perez created? So we'll go here. I press there and I'm pressing C because I'm looking for the field created by. So I can type it in, but I just think it's easier to not type in, and be careful of any, extra characters and stuff like that. So you get that, you applied the query, and then you close it, you get these results. When you press this, you are only looking at your selected records as a focus, which is very useful. And then you can go and look for the field created date because you want to see and sort by that. So the last one would be down here. It was on October 10th. And does anybody have the asset ID?
Insufficient permissions.
Yeah, Doug is not able to edit. Okay. Ted might need to resolve that. Ken's computer is locked by us.
And Noel gave us an answer.
Okay, yeah. Noel has an answer. Let's check this particular. So you can give a right click on this and say reselect highlighted, right? And that shows up as the only record that's up there selected, and then you can check for the asset ID field. There we go. Okay. Why is our answer different?
My data doesn't show me the 10-10-14. That's weird. I guess they don't have permission to see some of this data.
No, that's not possible.
Do you, maybe they have some fields turned off? Is there a way did they turn off fields by accident? Maybe you could show them.
I have one more hunch. Let me check.
GCSC should have rights to select rights to everything.
Yeah, but we are okay. Yeah, we.
And Ken, if you're remoting into Ken's machine, then Ken's machine has select rights on everything as well.
Correct.
And then for Candace, in that template folder, I created 4 MXDs copies at 10.6.1. So you have to go to that public works directory. You'll see a file MXD called Wastewater QC Candace, and you'll see the same thing for edit as well.
Okay, I think Noel found the answer.
Yeah, Noel, you just want to pay attention to, which way the table's sorted after sorting the course.
Ascending or descending.
Ascending or descending.
And also note for everybody is there's going to be some data you're going to have edit rights to, but you're not going to have edit rights to
everything.
Every data set, because there's some data that essentially is going to be in mapping in the future, or in the maps database, which is you're only going to have read access to that. But you should have rights to your core data set like stormwater, wastewater. I'm going to go look at permissions again, but
So Ted, maybe just for training purposes, they could have access to reading and writing the training data.
Well, the training data on SDE, right?
Is that possible?
No, yeah, I had set it that way, so everybody should have that.
If you look in the chat, there are some people who cannot follow along in the exercises because of permissions.
Eswin says he cannot
Yeah,
edit.
so
Doug says he cannot. No editing rights.
I mean, I can reapply the privileges. Maybe there's an issue with Doug on edit permissions for sewer, but I'm taking a look right now.
Okay, what we can do is follow along, and you still have those training workbooks, and you can go through the exercises even after this training is done with. Okay, as in like try to finish it sooner than later, like within a couple of weeks if you can. Okay. Okay, so let's go to the third question there. So how many active mainline features? But one thing I would like to say to those who do not have edit privileges, you don't need to be in an edit session to do these queries. But view only permissions are okay for those kind of queries and all.
And you guys also have to create, I don't know if you've gone over versions, but they have to create a version from default. They're not going to be able to edit default. So if they're trying to edit default without creating a version, that's going to cause a problem.
Right. So we have gone through this process, but don't edit it. Don't edit it yet. You just do these queries right now, which is the exercise one, right? So it doesn't need any editing privileges. So let's just do that way. So the next question we have, question number 3, is how many active mainline features are intersected by wastewater map grid? 54. So with that, we can open up the mains attribute table. Okay, and then well, actually we're going the other way. We're actually opening up the map grid.
So what I'm doing now is I'm giving privilege. So originally, the way I defined this is not everybody gets access to stormwater, not everybody gets access to wastewater. But for the purposes of this, I'm giving the storm engineering editors, the storm editors, the sewer engineering editors, the sewer editors, the cadastral editors access to both of those feature data sets. And Candace is part of the sewer engineering. She's part of the sewer role. So whatever sewer has access to, whatever Elijah can do, you should be able to do, Candace.
Okay, sounds good. So we find this map page, and we go to this map page. Zoom to this if you would like to, but it's selected basically, right? So the next thing we want to do is we want to see how many wastewater, the main lines intersect this grid. Okay, so you see all these mains, you want to see how many are actually, in this grid. It's tentative. You can do different kinds of selections as long as you got the grid selected. So that is using selection by, you can go to selection menu and then say select by location. And when you do that, you have something called target layers, and you have the source layer, and you have the spatial selection method. These are the 3 things that you look at, right? So the thing that we have here, we want to look at the mains. You can also, maybe select the manhole if you want to check that. So how many manholes are falling in that grid, right? So you select those 2, and your source layer, can anybody guess what the source layer needs to be now? It's the map grid. Okay, so we go to the map grid, and then you can say, if you don't check this on, mostly any features that fall within any map grid will get selected. But if you select this, use selected features, then only the ones that are intersecting this 54, which is selected, will be done. Now you can give a buffer distance. You can say, oh, I need a little bit extra around it, but for sake of this workbook, we are not going to do that right now. So we say apply.
Maybe show them the selection methods they can choose from.
That needs to be clarified and absolutely certain. And if it's not,
I can't do both. Sorry, buddies.
Okay.
Okay.
Ted,
So basically, you have a lot of operations over here. Intersect is the most popular one. The other thing that you would normally use is have their centroid in. Like, for example, you want all domains whose centroid falls in here, or completely within. These are the different options. But right now we did the intersect, and because the workbook says, then we close this one, right? And then what's our answer? How many are selected? We can quickly find out here, right? You get the answer to how many by looking at the 601, right? So 601, everybody got this?
the question is how many linear feet of pipe are intersect that grid?
Good. So thank you for correcting me, Adam. This then if you got 601, but that's not 601 miles of main there.
Yeah, that's 601 features. So what we'd have to do is open up the main attribute table.
Correct. So we open up the main attribute table, and then we can say show selected records. Okay. There are different ways to measure pipe length, but I'm going to, is there a field called pipe length here? Yes, there is. Okay. But some are nulls. You have to be careful with that. So if you look by pipe length and then you said, just give me the total, right? You find that it's 124,000, 428, 429 feet. Okay. So I'm
Yeah,
just making.
it's worth mentioning that the units are in feet because the coordinate system is in state plane feet.
Yeah, so just
the
remember
units are also in feet.
right. So just remember this answer over here, maybe 128 for 428, right? So
It also might be worth showing them the field, the shape fields that are automatically calculated in the state plane coordinate system for like areas and lengths that are calculated at the end of the table.
right. So let me. So this is one way of doing it, but you can also maybe choose another field right there. You don't need to go out of this again, right? So you can just drop down and say, hey, I could be, instead of pipe length, which is an attribute field which needs to be filled in, and hence you have nulls there. Let me check by the shape length. Okay, shape length is the geometric length, and then that gives you, even the ones that are nulls, they will have a shape length, and that shows up over here. That's the sum.
So shape length is automatically generated when you create features, just because of the state plane coordinate system.
Right. So
well, shape is created just because it's a line feature, regardless of which coordinate system.
Yeah.
We meant to say it's in feet because it's that quadrant.
Right.
Shape would be created if I had UTM, if I had NAT83, WGS. Everything has an area, everything has a length, regardless of whether it's in a geodatabase file or an enterprise geodatabase.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's in feet because of the specific coordinate system that you're using, but the units are assumed to be in feet. Let's put it that way. Okay. So that's this. Now, if somebody asked you for miles, you know what to do. Can somebody tell me how many miles this would be?
Wow, that's a good question. And also, ST length is also showing that you're using ST geometry. So from a database standpoint, you can go back and do spatial SQL behind the scenes. Just as an FYI. Not that you guys are going to do a lot of that, but.
Okay. Miles, just take that, and then, there's units and those things that come in. Again, you can do measurements, but this is on the statistics. Just remember that. I'm just saying it's about, anybody got the answer? It's about 25, 20.
How do you figure out miles? How would you do that?
It's feet divided by the unit of conversion. So that's just basically, I didn't calculate here, but if you were to do it, you.
Yeah, it's divided by 5,280.
Mhm.
Oh, look at her. There you go.
So
Is there any way to automatically do that without having to, if I'm not a math person and I want to be able to calculate that information, is there a way to do that?
yeah, there is a way. We will talk about that like after this training. I mean, we can, look at that a little bit later. I just want to maybe move forward with the next ones. Okay. There are ways to. Okay, let's see. This basically also is giving you the ranges here. Yeah, I just want you to make a note of these. When you're looking at this exercise, I would like you to, let's say, for example, you can go to the, pipe length again. Pipe length makes sense to summarize, and that's why we're doing this. But you can see what's the minimum, what's the maximum, and what's the count that you're getting, the sum, mean, standard deviation. If you're doing those kind of analytics, or you want to quickly take a look what's happening in this particular tile, it could be even in a ward. You can say what's happening in this ward, what do the pipelines look like. Okay, now if you were to switch to any other fields also, you will get some information. It may or may not make sense because statistics on some fields don't really make sense too much. So that's basically the queries. Everybody got the question 3? Yes. Question 4, that's what we looked at right now. So question 5. Okay, so what spatial coordinate systems, horizontal and vertical, do the wastewater data, and of course stormwater also, they're consistent, right? So what do they use? And the MXD. So what do they use? Which coordinate system? We have looked at this before.
XY, NAT 83, State Plain Zone 6.
Okay, and then you have your
2230 well-known ID.
right. So these are the coordinate systems. We have looked at it before, but that's basically one of the questions. And the next one is,
and is there a place you can find the properties without having to go to the catalog window?
Yeah. Well, this is to do with the layers, but if you can go to the layer properties, and then there's one on the data frame, but you can go down here and get that information as well. And the data frame is also there. We are keeping it consistent across everything. There are some situations where you will not need to, but this is not one of those cases. This is the case where everything needs to be consistent for the best of, keeping everything together in the same units and the same coordinate system. So that's the best for editing. Okay, so that's on the coordinate systems. And then we want to talk about geometric network. You have the storm network and the sewer network. Now let me actually make sure that if I close this catalog window for any reason, you can get back to it by using this button here, right? So does anybody know what feature classes are in your geometric network for the storm and for wastewater? If you give a right click on here, and then you go to the properties, So then you will see all the feature classes that are participating. Okay, so that's, can anybody say what's unique about this geometric network? What kind of feature classes can participate?
Lines and points.
Yeah, and you cannot have polygons participate in this or annotations. It's just lines and points, because it's just taking line and the point, and there has to be a point at the end of every line. And if there isn't any point at the end of a line, which could happen in editing sometimes, then we have this placeholder that automatically pops up. Okay, and so that's basically shown over here, and we show red dot because when you create a line and you don't create its end nodes, or you don't snap to a manhole or any other existing ones, then you will see this red dot saying it's a reminder for you that you need to have it snapped, or you need to have something at the end of it, a valid node. Okay, the wastewater feature classes have topology rules. You have looked at the topology rules before, right? So in the wastewater, you have two topologies here, and then on the storm drain side, you have one topology for the storm drain drainage area. So we have seen the topology rules by going to the properties. Okay, and you will work with them a little bit more later. This is just completing the exercises here. Minimum scale. Okay, so question number 8 is asking for what is the minimum scale that layers like service, clean out, and manhole can be viewed in the map. Right now, is it visible? Can you see them? Obviously not, right? The other indication is, of course, you cannot see them on the map, but you cannot also, like you can see this graying out. Okay, so at what scale are they going to be visible? Can anybody tell me? Or type in the chat window? Good.
Oh.
Yeah, we set it to 3000 because I think this is in the MXD, but I understand that there is some display metadata that you have had in the past. So we set it so that you can see it at a reasonable distance as you keep zooming in. Okay, how do you get to the scale quickly? You can type in here, like if you were, I'm going to zoom back, and you can type in here. Right? So that's a zoom scale. Question number 8. So we're done with these, with the first set of exercises. Has everybody been able to look at it and complete any questions so far? Does anybody need a break? So at this point, is everybody able to edit?
Has everybody created a version?
Yeah, that's a good question. Has everybody been able to create a version? Just create even a test version.
And then has everybody switched to the new version? Because once you create a version, you have to switch to it to be able to have access to it.
Let me go through the list, ask individually. I see Leonard. I'm just going out down the list here. Leonard, is he able to?
Right now, I only see versions for Ken and Elijah and me. So if anybody else has not created a version, you will not be able to edit the data.
Yeah, and how Ted is looking at is if, and this is possible because everybody's creating versions, and you can go to the administration and then look at, you can look at the tree view. Okay, I see Elijah has created under the default. Elijah, we were using this training default here.
And Elijah created his version off of SD default, not training default.
So we're using the training default right now temporarily, but eventually you'll be editing the SD default. I mean, creating a version under SD default. But now we are trying to keep it under this because we have done some changes to the data so that you can make some edits on a cul-de-sac and so on. So it kind of like the SD training default has been modified a little bit for your editing. So that's why we would like you to create it under the training default here. So the child has to go under this. If you have a question on how to make sure that you have it under this, then let us know at this point.
But Elijah did a great job on putting a description in there.
Yeah, if we click on Elijah's version, you can see the name and we can have the description there, and it's protected. So those are all good.
In the chat window, someone's
Okay.
having an error.
Let me see. Okay, so Noel's been having an error. The application is not licensed to perform this operation, error creating version. Okay, good question.
I think what it might be is some of these people might have ArcMap and they may not have at least standard defined. So Noel, send me your computer name. I'm going to remote in real quick and I can change that license for you.
Yeah, so you need to have a specific.
Everybody needs at least a standard license and above to edit enterprise geodatabases.
And that's something I had assumed all along, as far as like editors will have access to either standard or advanced, because you're editing.
Yeah. By default, we typically set everybody to basic, but we're changing that as we go.
Okay. So, yeah, Candace also has the same question. I think at this point, we should make sure that everybody is able to create a version. So it's a good checkpoint for us.
You can know that by going to the help and then see what license you have.
Okay. So just going, well, I'm assuming then that yes, some people are not able to or haven't responded. So we'll have to see. Doug, are you able to create a version? Okay. Aswin says he will create a version once the training class is complete. Okay, that's fine. So I am assuming that everybody is kind of like ready to move on. Okay. Leonard just mentioned that his computer crashed. So, okay. So let's assume that you will create these versions, right? So we will continue with the rest of the training. So I'm going to close assuming that everybody is going to create a version. But I think we should make it a point, like within the, maybe by tomorrow, if you can make sure that you have been able to create a version. Otherwise, we'll need to troubleshoot and see. So the next thing that we're looking at is correcting common errors. And one of the things that we have is like duplicate manholes or orphan features and so on, right? So if you're able to, so this exercise, the goals of like correcting common errors exercise 2 would basically help you with some things like deleting features. That will look into that, and then navigating to the locations and so on. Okay, so first let's see, there is a duplicate. We found a duplicate in your data when we were running the data reviewer, right? So we need to, the steps say, okay, create a new version and then make sure that you're connected. So that's all done here, right? We already have connected to that version here, right? So we have to find the manhole with number 4037A. Okay, and I'll show you what's unique about that. We found yeah, what's the problem in that area, right? So manhole number 4037A, you can find it different ways. One way is find tool. You can type in here 4037 and you can choose. You know exactly what you're looking for. You can say only, because this will be faster if you specify the layer, right? And you say find it, and it found, and you're looking for that ID. Adam, is it 4037A?
Yeah, but try searching from the numerical part of the asset ID. So just 2006. 20,
Okay, use the asset ID instead. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we will use the asset ID 2006238, and you can narrow it down to the field also. Found it. Right click, zoom to. Oh. So we said zoom to, and I'm going to close this catalog thing over here, but we said zoom to, but it kind of got in the vicinity. But if you can, you know, say flash, or you can even say select it for me, it will select for you. Okay, so what's going on here that we have to delete it, right? So we have to go closer. And you see how you have the abandoned manholes underneath, which are showing in gray color, and the active manholes, which are showing on the top in that yellow color, right? So let's say you select these both. And then you have a bunch that got selected. You don't want the mains to be selected. You don't want the abandoned mains or the labels. You're only interested in the manholes. Okay, so now unselect those, and then you only have the manhole there, and then there is another right below it in the abandoned manhole. Okay, so one of these needs to go. Okay, so which one would go? Technically, when you are working on this, like you have two features that are on the top of each other, and it's not practical in the real world too, right? You wouldn't, you cannot have one manhole and then on the top of that another manhole. Nobody builds that, right? Unless you're like subterranean, like maybe 30 feet down the ground, like, you know, that kind of system, and then you have some a newer system on the top, like city built or city kind of. So from that standpoint, one of these has to go. Which one is it? Anybody? The abandoned one or the active one? Hello? I'm assuming it's the abandoned one. Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. So is there a reason why you may have two of them there, Ted?
That might be an Elijah question too.
Okay. Elijah? Okay, he's saying it may be a trunk sewer and a regular sewer. But would you have two manholes on the top of each other there? No, okay. So let's assume, for sake of this editing, and this is not, we're not really editing your data, right? It's just a, you know, practice editing. So I'm going to be, deleting the abandoned manhole. So we just go and then say start editing. Okay, and then we go back here, right? You have two of these. You don't want to delete this manholes, which is the active one, so obviously you're going to clear that from selection. Okay, so now you only have the abandoned manhole there. So in which case you can go and select, use your tool, give a right click here, and then make sure that you only have that abandoned manhole selected and nothing else. And then say delete. Okay, so now that's gone. Okay, now the thing with editor tracking is that it doesn't keep track of your edits over here because you have deleted it. Okay, it will be in the history archives, but not here in your, like if a feature gets deleted, it's only tracked in a version as it's deleted. Okay, so I'm going to then, basically you have to keep saving your edits, and I can save edits because we know we're not going to be pushing the edits up there, so we're just going to save the edits right now. Okay, okay, so that was how you delete the manhole. Now you see that there is a question number 12 which says what manhole abandoned or active needs to be deleted, and obviously we deleted the abandoned manhole now. So this is an example of deleting the features, and there are different ways to do it. You can delete it from here, right click and delete it, or you could have deleted it in the table. There are different ways, and in the workbook we're deleting it using the attribute table. Okay, so you can do it in any different way. Okay, now you have your versioning there, right? As soon as you save your edits, you are reconciling your version. Okay, and so it shows your parent version and how do you want the to define the conflicts if somebody else was editing at the same time in the parent version. Okay, and then you have by object or by attribute column. If you're making attribute edits, then you would go with this one. And then if you wanted to make the in favor of the target version, would make sure that this version would win in case there is a conflict. Otherwise, in favor of the edit version, would make sure that your editing version changes are pushed. Okay. We'll go more into details on this later, but right now, this is basically the reconcile dialog box that comes up. I'm going to say okay, and that is reconciling your version. Okay. Now, we are not going to do the posting. Okay. So that's not for the editors right now, at least in the beginning stages. Okay. So that's basically our method to delete features, which is one of the easiest deletes, is one of the easiest edits to do, but also one of the most regretful edits to do. So how many times, I don't know if you have had to happen, but the versioning is giving you a safeguard. So if somebody said, oh, I deleted by mistake, you have a safeguard up there with the versioning. Okay. Any questions on this so far? Okay. Okay, the next edit that we have in the exercise is basically the orphan features. We found some features that are just hanging around without snapping in our review when we ran the data reviewer. So we can go to this address called 3687. Now, normally we would ask you to create a version every time you, not every time, but basically if you have a project, it's more like a project-based versioning. I'm going to do these minor edits in this version right now. Okay. But if you were to do like a cul-de-sac or something, you will give it a proper name and everything. So I'm going to go and find an address. How do you find addresses? With the locations, right? And then you can say, well, we have a problem. Okay. The problem here is that we don't have a, do you have a geocoder, Ted, that we can use?
It's still there.
Are you aware of any geocoders that we can use?
Mm.
Oh, I'm here. I've been dealing with other stuff, management stuff. So we have a geocoder that Ken can probably point it out. He knows more about that stuff than me. And we do have a service that's running on one of our servers that maybe Lindsay's tested. I don't know if anybody's tested it out, whether it works for geocoding, but there is a service out there as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
But Ken can help. Ken can help.
Okay, Ken, go ahead. I think we will, and I realize that we are not able to get to ArcGIS online resources.
Yeah, you
So
can't because I'm under an elevated account. I
right.
don't have internet access.
Okay.
I think where it would be.
Hiram, we'll have to make a note about the
Yeah,
geocoder. Okay.
this for the next round of this exercise, I have to think of where I put it. It wasn't necessarily final yet.
Okay. So if that's okay, we can move on if you don't mind. Ken.
Yeah, I don't mind.
Okay. So I'm going to cancel it out, and we can find a geocoder later and then do it. You know. So basically, if you had a geocoder, it will show up over here, which typically is ArcGIS Online if you have internet access. But if you don't, then it can be your own internal geocoder. Okay. But what we will do today, for sake of quickly finding things, is we look for this service connection with asset ID 90, and this is coming from the workbook 908. 2442. So and that's basically a service connection. Adam, hello?
I'm here.
Okay, are you able to do this edit?
Sure. I just need keyboard and mouse control.
Okay. And is it okay if Adam can get the keyboard and mouse?
Why is there a choice screen here someplace?
Oh, have you been requesting, Adam?
Can I do that?
No, it's okay. It's okay. Let's do it this way. I'll just continue. It's okay. Let's see. We were about to search for that service, right? And in field asset ID, find. It may not be. Would it be in the asset ID? I'll just say all fields.
Oh, it's just all fields. It's fine.
Yeah, and I think I forgot checking this on. So find features that are similar to the search string too. And 082442. When you said service, is that a lateral line we're talking about, Adam? In that, okay, so that must be the thing. I said service point, but it's probably this. Oh,
So I searched for service connection or connection, and I used the asset ID.
okay, it was a service connection point feature class. Okay, let's find it some other way. The other way you can find things is by opening up the attribute table. And you know your data way better than us. So if there's a faster way to find things, then let us know. Service, and I don't know, it somehow seems to me like there is nothing in that format here.
Yeah.
Let me randomly,
The address field should work as well too.
let me just say all features then. It's probably somewhere in this group, but I can't go with.
So it's service. It's service.
It's service.
Right. Yeah. It's up. Yeah. Service right there. All fields, and then you can either search by the end of the asset ID or that
This
address.
is what it is, 9082442.
Yeah.
Or you said there's an address field, right?
Yeah.
Is that the address number?
Street name, yeah. Address number. And it's 36687.
Well, this is a little bit complex because you have so many 3687s come up and you don't know which one it is. So
in our version of the data, the asset ID was populated.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I think there's a problem with that.
Yeah, okay. So let's open up the attribute table and do a query consisting of two fields. Okay. Select by attributes. One field is your address number equals, and I only do this because I can cancel this. I just want to see the string format. It's a string, so I'll just say, and if you know what kind of it is, what kind of field it is, then you don't need to do this get unique values. And street name equals say there's a lot of possibilities with street names, so just be careful. You can do a like if you want the like string and search that way. We'll see if we did get a result. So otherwise I would have used like, mure, and sometimes you may or may not have that. So like avenue, so you AVE, AV, so you can do that too. Okay, the person tells you that it's like something, and if the person is placed at the end, it's looking for more. It's looking for MUIR, mure, and then space, and then it searches for anything that's, so this whole criteria has to match in the beginning. So percentage is for like, you're looking for like. Okay, so you found that. Uh, okay, so we're going to zoom it a little bit closer here. You see all those red blobs there, right? So I'm going to unselect because there's, you see all these red blobs. They are showing that what they're indicating is that they have these orphan junctions or the network junctions here. Okay, and I see a point right beside, which is a service point, which should actually probably be at the end of this lateral line. Okay, so for that reasons we select this, and then we have this, we can move it closer to pick up the snapping automatically, which I may have to check the snap settings at this time. So let's see. Can anybody see the snap when you hover? So you don't see the snap settings,
Yeah,
right? So you need to go and turn
snapping
on the snapping.
control.
So one important thing when you're moving any features, anything whatsoever, make sure the selection here is showing only the feature that you want to edit. Okay, so just make sure that you only have one feature and only one that you want to select, you want to move to be selected. Okay. Okay, I would like to show you the settings over here. If you go to the editor, then you have the snapping options, and then it says 10 pixels. So you have the layer name and the snap type. So that's basically the snapping options. So within 10 pixels, but then you also have the snapping toolbar too. And in this, you have point, end, vertex, and edge snapping on. Okay, and we are saying that to have the snapping on. Okay. We can snap to the base map layers and feature service layers if you have them. But basically it should show us the snap tips. one thing you can do is adjust these reference scale. You're at 2400. You can make it, let's say, 1200. It controls the way your mainly the thickness of the lines and everything in the symbology. Or you can make it like 600. Okay. Okay, so you have selected, now you see that the annotation kind of appears a little bit away from there, but I am trying to move and snap it here. I'm just trying to get to the snap. You see it shows up there. It's kind of snapping to the end, but I don't see the
Doesn't look
tips.
like it's snapping.
So my worry is the GoToMeeting stopping this. is kind of preventing the tips to show up, the snapping tips. Ken, do you see the snapping tips? Any text?
No, I'm not seeing any of the text. So
Okay, but
it does look like it's doing the, rather than the endpoint, it was grabbing along the edge itself.
okay,
So that's why I was checking the other thing, and we can do the
go
options.
ahead, go ahead and check. Yeah.
That's usually no big deal. I usually use 20 pixels. I
Yeah,
don't know what
let's increase that to 20. My worry is sometimes in GoToMeeting, it may or may not. Okay, so you just want to have the end snapping on. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's see if we see the tips right now. I don't really see the tips.
It's
I think
probably something else.
can you try doing this for me, because it may be better. I'm kind of going over the, because you have a remote desktop and on the top of that we have this. So
Wait for it to finish redrawing. Just making sure. Where's the feature that was there? It's still redrawing.
no, it's moved here actually to the right side. You see it on the screen. Let me bring it over for you. It kind of moved to a not preferred location, a little bit away. So I'm gonna move it here. Okay, now can you see that one?
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe press spacebar when you're doing this, when you're holding it. Maybe there's something like toggled.
Yeah.
Spacebar can temporarily disable snapping. Maybe it can enable it as well. Maybe something's going on with that.
Did it snap or
Also,
it?
well, we didn't get any of the text to signal that it was snapping.
Yeah.
Yeah, the text indication is really a firm confirmation that it is snapping correctly. But did you get something like a rubber banding effect when you move things around and it's like snapping? So it's still refreshing or it's done? Let me see the refresh button here.
Force it to refresh.
Okay, it has not. The service point is part of the geometric network, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah, this has not snapped. Clearly not. Because if it did snap, then you would see that this kind of like disappears from there. the red point should disappear. So I'm just moving it a little bit apart, and let's see.
Yes. What you have to do is move it well away and then back again
Mm-hmm.
to get the snapping to work. Snap the base mat.
Oh, let me actually also go to the options. This is where um, there may be a few more things to check. None of these are related to. Adam, I remember you ran into something like this before on one of the machines.
Yeah,
Was that
yeah,
because you were on 10.7 and then
yeah. It was the 10.7 thing, and
you moved
we
to
were
10.6 and it was working fine for you, right?
yeah,
I'm just trying
and
to. Mhm.
I think there's an honestly, well, I think there's an incompatibility between the versions of ArcMap with the map document between 10.6 and 10.1, because this is the exact version I was like snapping works, it's just not obvious. Like you have to like right click and say snap to endpoint, snap to edge. Like it's like really old school. And
Yeah, sometimes that's how you force it. It's just with the right click. That's
yeah,
just thinking
but
there's enough depth that
Okay, let's do it that way. Let's try to
I
figure
bet
out.
if you opened up a blank document right now and brought this data and tried to make this edit with the snapping, it would work fine.
Okay, let me try something.
Mm-hmm.
Make it 0. Are there labels showing up for these?
The labels?
No, okay. Yeah, I just saw that ad was there, so.
Yeah, so
No, it's still not like, it
yeah,
seems to be, it's when I bring it there, it seems to be like when you see that black dot right there,
it
it
looks like
seems,
it's on snap on and it's not though. So
yeah. Let me
yeah.
leave that and then see what happens. But
there's a step that's not happening.
Yeah, it's missing the snapping tips, which is like the whole the whole thing. Like it's really obvious when it's working. But I bet I almost think that we have to recreate this map document in 10.7.
uh, do you have 10.6 somewhere, or is this it? We can recreate. I mean, we can give you a 10.7. That shouldn't be. You have saved it as 10.7 right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
So Ken should be running 10.7.1. The only people that are running 10.6.1 are utilities. I have templates out there that I saved out for 10.6.1 just for this training. 99% of the time they're not going to be in need that probably because they're going to be editing their own electric or water data.
Do the snapping drop down. Let me look at this.
Go ahead, do it. We are having some issues with the snapping menu, Ted, as you may have noticed. But we did observe that in our, when we were working on, we had a 10.7 machine. We noticed the same kind of issues. But we thought that you were going to be using 10.6, so it shouldn't be a major thing.
You might want to go to classic snapping.
Yeah,
Classic snapping didn't fix the problem for me, but
let's go there and see. Yeah.
All right. Take control again.
So there is something called snap to topology nodes. Point snapping must be enabled for snapping node topology to occur.
That's point snapping.
Okay, is that point snapping? I still don't see a snap tip. Nope. Okay.
One of the articles said in the S3 document, it said stop and start edit session after you enable the snapping.
Okay, let's do that.
Let's see for a quick
Yeah,
minute.
that's right.
I'll say no.
Can't get, yeah, I was going to say do an area.
Okay. All right, not yet. Okay, we will do one thing. Let me ask. Ted, are all of your desktops 10.7?
Everything except for utilities, 10.7.1.
As in like the desktops, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, we will find a way to, handle this, and if need an MXT, if an MXT needs to be created and it has to be on your environment, then we'll do it in a separate GoToMeeting. I don't know if Ken, you're available later today, but it's 12 right now. We have to wrap up this session.
Yeah, I'll be available later, yes.
Okay, so I'll check with Adam. We'll see if we can, we have an MXT on our side, and then we can get that working, and we get it over to you, or we can build it up on your side.
What you probably should do is you should probably go and delete the default.mxt and start it over.
You mean the normal.mxt?
Yep.
Okay, that's something we can try right now real quickly. You open for that, Ken?
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to close this. We're not saving edits.
Yeah, because sometimes that's how I've solved the node snapping problems, is just to completely close the ArcMap session and then open it back up. And
yeah, that too. So normal.mxt would be in your profile. Can you get there? I think it's in the documents. Yeah, users. I think my documents.
Oh, my documents.
Yeah. Let me quickly check. Yeah, that's more likely. Yeah, actually, yes. Don't find it. That seems to be like an art catalog. Let me quickly check.
Sure.
So we're doing quite a bit of troubleshooting for the first day.
I have things to check.
Okay, Esri desktop. Browse within the Esri folder. So Esri desktop. So you have to look for the Esri folders. So do you find? Wait a second. Where Okay, see documents and settings. What OS is this?
You got to go to the user directory. You got to go to KAlthizer. Then you go to roaming. Then you go to ArcMap. Then you KAlthizer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Is it under the elevated or the?
No, KAlthizer. Go to KAlthizer.
Whatever
Are
you're
you
logged in with right now.
I'm logged in as under the elevated account.
Yeah, then you should.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you got to get elevated.
Mhm.
Then you got to go to app data, but you got to show your hidden files.
Yeah, it's
To go to the start menu, go to hidden files, show hidden files. I guess you could do it that way. Go to roaming. Go to Esri, ArcMap, our desktop 10.7, and go to ArcMap. ArcMap. Delete. Go to templates. Delete normal.mxt. Why are you editing as? Why are you logged in as KAlthizer E? Yes. Yes, you want to delete it.
Because that's the way to ensure that I don't get locked up. So.
Okay, so is this MXT here?
Breathe.
Yep.
Sorry.
Open that up, and then you'll generate a new normal.mxt. This is a lesson for everybody. Big issue with ArcMap for the last 20 years is anytime you have problems with your map document, typically if you were to call support, they'd say the first thing they'd tell you is delete the normal.mxt. And they got rid of them in Pro because they were so problematic in ArcMap.
Yeah. We hit upon at least two troubleshooting things today. One was the broken links, and this is the normal.mxt. This is the last. After this, we'll stop and we'll reconnect tomorrow. But Ken will if this doesn't work, the snapping, then we'll touch base with you a little bit later today.
Yeah. I fully expect to be in touch with you later.
That's setting the expectations there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just do a random test. I don't need to go to that exact same location that we were trying to. Let's go to editor.
This one has a version.
Yeah, we didn't save it with that version, I think that's why. The MXT. just save this just to be okay. Okay, random edit. I'm not going to just create a point somewhere. No snapping showing up.
No.
You're gonna have to zoom in closer. And you should probably set a sticky move tolerance, shouldn't you? And that give you a better effect when you're grabbing something to see if it whether it snaps or not.
And give it like 10 pixels here.
Yeah.
And I also turned on this classic snapping.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to see. Apply. The other thing I would turn on in your settings is these, but we'll look at this later. I'm just going to
Check your classic snapping settings.
does it show up? Can anybody see? I can
No.
kind of sense it. When I get it closer, it seems like it is, but I don't think it is.
No, it's not.
Okay. We will work on this then.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Ken will call you a little bit later, like around in an hour or so. Okay?
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Yeah, we'll send a video.
I'm going to stop this editing.
This question to possible to reschedule tomorrow's training.
Who?
Leonard, he wants to reschedule the training as there was a lot of info covered.
Okay. Let me ask Ted.
But it was in all of the information and the copy of the MXD and be ready to edit, make the versions and all that. So I think that's why.
Oh yeah.
We have no problem. Actually, we would like it to be at a comfortable pace and schedule for you. So if you want time, and in the meanwhile, we can support you with having your MXD up and running with individual editors. We'd love to do that, but we just want to get confirmation from Ted and CJ. So what do you think, Ken, and what does everybody else think?
I think it wouldn't hurt to give us a couple more days to iron out these problems, but either way, you and I will still be conversing today, I think, to try to resolve some of these issues.
Yeah.
But we also got to get the users better situated to it.
Right. We need to make sure everybody has, privileges, and so we can connect with individual users. If I get a list of people, their emails and phone numbers, so that we can call and follow up and see, maybe do a GoToMeeting and see if they're able to create a version, to be able to, look at the data and so on. So that's something
Also, if we, if you guys have time, you guys get your MXDs running, try and go through some of that Esri tutorial stuff in the meantime. And then as well, like,
Yeah.
before the next training, if people could have, some way to communicate with us other than the chat window, because it's kind of hard to tell, how people are grasping things or if we're moving too fast. If no
Yeah.
one can, like, tell us to hold up or ask a question, because, it's hard for us to tell, like, how much of you guys
Right.
already know, and
I
like
think the
if
pace is okay. I think it's just the opportunity for asking questions.
the feedback element is missing, and I think that would really smooth things out.
Yeah.
So
By the
we could
time
somehow figure
somebody,
out to get everyone mics. Yeah.
right, by the time somebody types in the chat window, we might miss that, thing and we've gone too fast or something. That's
Yeah.
what.
Oh,
Even if it means that we're you guys are logging in like through your desk to go to meeting through your desktop, right? And so you can see the screen well, and then logging in through your phone with the GoToMeeting app to have voice, like to have communication, so you can use both.
Yeah, that's a possibility. We
That's
can have up
if
to
you don't, yeah.
151 users on GoToMeeting. So even if everybody had two connections, we'll still,
Yeah.
like one on the phone
So,
and one on this, we'll still be okay.
yeah, so if you don't have a microphone or a USB microphone or something like that and headset to plug into your physical computer that you're using GoToMeeting on, then you need, then try and calling in with your phone or using the GoToMeeting app on your phone, which is very similar to the desktop app, and you can be logged in both at your computer and logged in on the phone, so you can see the screen on the computer and communicate with us on your phone.
Yeah, GoToMeeting comes with a phone number, so that can be called.
Yeah, you can call into the phone number too. Yeah.
Mhm.
So anybody has any questions on today's training, especially with relation to, GoToMeeting and all, let us know too, so that we can make sure that you are well connected next time. But again, as far as tomorrow's training, I would like to confirm, I don't know if Ted, are you on, can you hear us and let us know? It seems like everybody agrees that there needs to be a little bit time before our next session. And in the meantime, we'll be ironing out some of the things like the desktops and
snapping, a geocoder, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Snapping should be an easy fix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just take a couple moments.
I don't know, is Ted here on the, hello Ted? Might be busy.
No, not in the meeting.
He's not in the meeting?
No.
I'm looking
He left.
at the chat window and then I'm thinking he's already there. Okay, I'll call him probably.
Yeah,
When
that
we
would
meet,
probably be best.
Okay, let me
yeah,
call
when
him.
we meet at 2 o'clock, maybe we can have some, this decision.
Right. Let me call, and then if there needs to be a change on the timing, then it will be sent to everybody, I think, through like CJ might send the
Yeah,
change.
CJ coordinates everything, so
I kind of
she
worry
would
that
have
it's
the
hard
list of
to
all
get, right. Mm-hmm.
yeah, she'll have the list of all the users that need to participate and that sort of thing. So
Right. I think that it may be hard for her to coordinate, but I mean rescheduling is hard, but I think it must be done because we just want to make sure that all the ducks are in a row before the next training. Okay, and so let me talk to Ted and get back to you.
okay.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.